Hey everybody, Kerzac here, and today I thought we'd do more of an interesting discussions type video. If you remember my previous video, which was almost a year ago now, wow, I've been gone a while. But my previous video was about whether or not we could really call the Studio Series Hot Rod Voyager. And one of the things I kind of constantly see pop up in the groups I'm in with my friends who like Transformers is what really counts as a deluxe class, as we have seen a variety in sizes and heights. Now, Transformers have never been set in stone on what size they're going to be. You can go back as far as G1 even and see like completely different size figures at the same price point. But especially it seems Deluxe and Leader class especially, which concerns we're only down to 4 classes and 2 of them seem kind of random on what size they're going to be. It's kind of a problem. Leader class, there's a little bit more of a discussion there, but Deluxe class, it does seem kind of all over the place what exactly the size of the character is going to be. And we'll kind of get into that, you know, we kind of have all kinds of things to discuss. We have proportions, we have, you know, size and the show accuracy, we have other things. So, you know, we're going to start here. These are all figures that in the past, let's see, since Siege, so that's what, 2018, 2019? So in the past 3 or 4 years, these are all figures that at some point were given the $20 price point, and were labeled Deluxe class. And as you can see, we do have a little bit of height difference with the 2 outliers being Cliffjumper and the Sharkticon here. And Huffer kind of on the lower end, and we have the Ironhide mold on the higher end here. So, you know, let's get the 2 extremes side by side with each other. You can kind of see what people's point is. Considering these are both $20, and we're not talking about, oh, 10 years apart, look how much $20 gets you now. These figures came out about a year apart, or actually if you count this Netflix one here, they came out the same year, actually, I believe. If you count the Netflix colors here, and then the Earthrise mold here, these actually came out the same year, I believe. Or they were within a year of each other coming out. So you can kind of see the 2 extremes here. Like I said, Ironhide's kind of on the bigger side for our deluxe size. Not that big, but you can see, compared to the others, he is a good bit taller and a good bit bulkier. I know this guy has some other name, he's Army Drone or something, but we're just going to call him Black Ironhide here. And then on the other side, this is kind of the one that kind of started the big drama, not drama, but the big conversation discussion with Earthrise Cliffjumper here being so small. Now, scale-wise, it makes perfect sense for Cliffjumper to be so small. There's an iconic scene in G1 where Hound and Cliffjumper are working together to spawn Decepticons. And yeah, Cliffjumper is supposed to be significantly smaller than Hound. It makes perfect sense scale-wise. Doesn't quite make sense why it's $20, though. Now, to make up for this, they did give him extra accessories, as most characters only come with 1 or 2 guns. While Cliffjumper here got this big cannon, as well as a couple other pieces, but I have the pieces put away in storage so I don't lose them. You know, you can see with most characters, like Huffer, he came with his gun and his shield. The Kingdom Shadow Panther here, he only has his tail. Cup came with the little Energon dispenser and a little gun, and they were both quite small in comparison. But then again, we also have Ironhide here, who does have a big weapon. And you can see it's actually about the same length. Now granted, this is a lot different. This is only 2 pieces. There's only a little bit of paint on the end. And it's also a lot more hollowed out. I don't have something to weigh it on here, but Cliffjumper's cannon here is significantly heavier. Or I should say it's bazooka. So there is a difference. Not to mention, this is also much more well painted, as every piece of this does have the 2 guns are completely covered in paint, and even the smaller piece has a little bit of paint on the sides, as well as there's the 2 smaller pieces that I have put away in storage. But you get the point. It's kind of quality versus quantity here, and so it kind of depends on which way you want to swing with that one. Like I said, we're taking 2 extremes here. It's much less noticeable when you say take somebody like Cup and put him next to Hound. There is a little bit of a height difference, but not to mention Hound is a bit bulkier while Cup is taller, so you got a lanky figure versus a slightly wider, more bulky figure. So there's a little bit more forgivable. Same thing with Shadow Panther. He's, you know, more lanky. He's got some kibble on his back where some of the plastic went. And then you kind of start to see what they're going to do with the mini-bots instead after what happened with Cliffjumper. And they are still smaller, but they're not nearly as small. I guess if you put all 3 of them side by side, you can see he's still he's still smaller than Hound here. But he's still a good bit bigger than Cliffjumper. I am using Hound because he's kind of in that middle area, right where your average Deluxe is going to be. See, and not to mention, he does have a good bit of paint on him. He's got paint on the chest, he's got paint on the face, he's got paint all over the front of the vehicle here. He's got paint completely covering his arms, because these arms are actually black. So these are completely painted silver. Not to mention he has accessories. Like I said, he has that big shield piece, he has the gun that splits in two. So this seems to be a much better balance of the two, compared to Cliff Jumper here, where it's very, very noticeable. I feel like that's kind of the thing with with Huffer too. He is still smaller, but he's not nearly as noticeably small. And he does have a bit more bulk to him than Cliff Jumper here. Plus, Cliff Jumper has some other controversies of, he's got the parts forming going on. A lot of people didn't care for that. But still, I think the point does stand. I understand where the problem is when you're paying $20, you're not even sure how big the figure is. Because you can even see it with other recent figures such as Nah here, or Sharkticon, who is a good bit smaller. And that actually does cause a problem, because that's actually not in scale, because we didn't see the Sharkticons much in robot mode, but when they were in robot mode, they were pretty big, Maybe we couldn't make a Voyager figure out of them, but at deluxe scale, he should probably, I won't say as big as Ironhide, but he should probably be at least as big as Hound here. And give a more, a better idea. And when they were in, especially when they were in their Sharkticon mode, they were about the same size as Cup and Hot Rod when they were fighting them. They were about the same size. And let me tell you, when he's in Sharkticon mode, I'm not going to transform, but he's about this big. And he's about right there. He's definitely not the scale. Better scale than the old Legends figure was in Titan's Return, that's for sure. But he's still definitely not quite the scale. Now, the answer to this thing, the answer to this problem, I think everybody kind of knows. We have, for example, Nah here, he is smaller, but he has so much paint on him. He has a lot of paint for our deluxe class. Everything on the face is paint here. This is purple is paint, the silver is paint, the eyes are painted. There's a little bit of paint there. His face is all painted. Like, there is a lot of paint on this figure, especially over big areas that we don't normally see on a deluxe class. Heck, we barely see them on Voyagers or Leaders anymore. So it's kind of pick your choose your poison. Like, yeah, he has his paint on here, but it's all that splatter kind of effect that really doesn't do much, doesn't really add anything. And it was kind of part of the special brand with Siege in the Netflix series. But you can see, other than little splatters, there's really not that much paint on him here. There's paint on the chest here, there's nothing inside there, it's on the face, and then there's on the end of the weapon, and that's it. Most of the paint's going towards the battle damage here. So like I said, I feel like everybody does kind of know the answer to why we have a variety in the deluxe class. We're trading plastic amount of plastic for paint and accuracy. And it really is kind of just choose your poison here. Do you want big figures who are a little bit more simplified, or do we want more smaller figures that got a little bit more, or do we want something that's kind of nice in the middle here? I do feel like Hasbro and Takara more recently are getting it a little bit more right. The mini bots that we've been getting have been more in the Huffer style here, where he's somewhere in the middle. He's still a little bit shorter, just enough to get the impression of a mini bot without making him tiny. Me personally, I do think Cliff Jumper and the Bumblebee that they made from him, yeah, they probably were not worth the $20 price tag. It was worth it. It was worth it for me to have a Cliff Jumper that was this accurate after so many years of having Cliff Jumpers that were just Bumblebee repaints that didn't look right or were not scaled right. But in terms of actual size, yeah, I can definitely understand where somebody says this was not worth $20. It's hard to justify deluxes at all $20, especially when we're supposedly, according to rumors, about to have another price jump that's jumping around to about $25. As we've already seen them go up to $23 in Kingdom. So, yeah, I can understand where the problem is, but it seems to have already been fixed with Hasbro. It seems to be getting better. But I do feel like it's an interesting thing to discuss, especially with the Transformers community. It seems to be something you especially see in the Transformers community. You see it a bit in Marvel Legends. You do see Marvel Legends figures, like you see a Hulk figure and you see a Captain America figure, and there's a huge difference in size. Usually because the Captain America figure comes with more accessories or build-a-figure piece and such. Here with Transformers, though, we don't get any such thing. And it does seem to be the most wide in scale. Like I said, you see it with Leader Class. It was already kind of a discussion about we're getting deluxes that are getting more expensive, and yet they seem to be shrinking. So tell me below in the comments, what do you think? Where do you sit? Where do you feel about the scale? What do you think is the best fit? I do think they're getting better, but we do still see stuff like this, like with Na, where he's still a bit too tiny. He's a well-made figure, but he's still too tiny. That is one thing I'll give them. I don't think we've seen any nearly as bad figures as we've seen the past few years previously. There's very few figures other than aesthetics that I might not care for. There's very few figures I've seen besides RC that I would say are not worth the price point purely on just size. So, this has been Kerzac. I hope you enjoyed this discussion video. I hope you all have a good day, and take care.